Hello, students. I hope you are staying safe and healthy. I am teacher Ebrahim, your teacher for general studies and communication skills while you're at home. And I need to remind you that this program is brought to you by Rwanda Education Board in partnership with MasterCard Foundation and Inspire, Educate, and Empower Rwanda. As you are well aware, the government suspended activities that brought people together, and all movements that are unnecessary, we are advised not to make them. And all this is in the fight to prevent the transmission or the spread of COVID-19. And as you also know, schools have been affected, and so we have to study from home. I am back to continue with our topic of democracy and good governance. In our last class, we talked about the concept of state. We looked at what a state is, what makes a state, and the duties of a state towards its citizens. We saw some examples of states here in Africa and outside all over the world. We concluded with the assertion that Rwanda is an independent state that fulfills its duties towards its citizens in all aspects of life. I remember I asked you to talk with your friends and talk about the different things that the state of Rwanda does for you as its duties, and from the first duties of the state that we talked about, I hope you came up with some of these duties. Now, today, we are going to look at the concept of democracy. I must remind you that you need a notebook and a pen in hand, ready to write down any important details you may need to remember in future. And you also need to clear away from any noise and any other forms of disruptions, because I need you to pay attention. First, we need to define democracy. I hope you managed to find out the meaning of democracy. Now let's compare what you found out with what other scholars have, or with what other scholars have come up with. Now, the word democracy originated from two Greek words, demos, which means people, and krasia, which means power. I said democracy originated from two Greek words, demos, which means people, and krasia, which means power. Therefore, democracy is defined as a form of government where power ultimately rests with the people. Because democracy, like we said, is a combination of two words, demos and krasia, people and power. So it is people power, or the power of the people. Therefore, democracy is the form of government where the power ultimately rests with the people. However, there are other people who have defined democracy in different ways. And we are going to look at three of them, three of these people. Very popular people, very intelligent people, and very good scholars. One of them is a professor of biology in America. His name is Thomas Seeley, who defined democracy as a government in which everyone has a share. Defined democracy as a government in which everyone has a share. He compared a government to a beehive. In a beehive, every bee has a share of the honey that is produced and has a role and responsibility to play in the survival of the beehive. Now, this means that every person has a role to play in the election, in the constitution, and the running of the government, which means every person is free as long as you qualify, for example, to become a president, to become a minister. This is actually a responsibility. If you think you need to change something, You say, okay, I want to be the executive secretary of my sector. You can make up the government and you can help in the running of the government. Number 2, there's a British academician called Lord James Bryce, who also defined democracy as a form of government in which the ruling power of a state, is largely vested not in any particular class or classes, but in the members of the community as a whole. Lord Bryce defined democracy as a form of government in which the ruling power of a state is largely vested not in any particular class or classes of people, but in the members of the community as a whole. Now, in simple terms, Lord Bryce says power belongs to the citizens as a whole, not an individual or group of individuals. The people have the power and can choose who leads them or who lead them.
Come along and play with us.
Now, the other person who defined democracy in a very good way was Abraham Lincoln, the 16th and one of the most respected presidents of the United States of America. He defined democracy as a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. This definition is one of the most popular ones. It means the government is made up of the people themselves to serve and work for the people, and this government must be chosen by the people. The people make up the government. They choose who leads them. They choose who will serve them, and the people who have been chosen serve the people that have chosen them, and they must remember that they have been chosen by these people. Like I said, this is one of the most popular and one definition that is very commonly used by academicians to define the concept of democracy. Now, there are 3 main aspects of democracy that I want us to think about, and that is the political, the social, and economic. Democracy can be seen through 3 main aspects: the political, the social, and the economic. Politically, the government is based on people's consent. The government exists because the people said it should exist. The people are the ones who chose it. And socially, this government increases and recognizes that people have rights and value. So this government, its job is to ensure that the worth or the value of these humans or the people that chose it is not only recognized but also increased. Improve the standards of living of the people. The people choose you, and you must make sure their standards of living, their human rights are all observed and respected. And then lastly, economically, the government aims to provide equal opportunities to all citizens and to eliminate exploitation of the people. So its job economically to ensure that every person has equal rights. Remember, we talked about one of the roles of the state, or one of the duties of a state, is to ensure that people are rich. People become rich. People become better off financially and economically. And therefore, the state provides equal opportunities to all citizens and to eliminate every possibility of people being exploited by anybody or by any maybe business or company. So which means the state makes sure that people who are selling things or providing services, selling goods and services, are not selling them very expensively. The state makes sure that you can start your own business and sell whatever you want to sell without feeling that maybe somebody else is going to oppress you or somebody else is going to exploit you. Now, there are things that need to be in place for democracy to flourish. And I want you to think about these things, the things that we need to have in place for democracy to thrive, for democracy to exist. We need to think about these things. I'm going to give you a few seconds to think about these things. Okay, I hope you are still here with me. I want to welcome everyone again. Like I said, I wanted you to think about the requirements that should be in place for democracy to thrive or to flourish. Now, we need to be conscious and respectful of political rights and duties. As citizens, we need to think about our duties and responsibilities. And our rights, we have rights, but we need to be responsible and respectful of these rights. Don't abuse your own rights, and don't let another person abuse your rights. You have a duty, for example, to be an obedient citizen. You need to do that. You have a duty to pay tax. You must do that. You have a right to go to school as a student, and therefore that right must be respected. However, if that right is going to be respected, your parent is going to pay school fees for you to go to school, then you as a student, you have a duty to go to school. It is your right to go to school, but it is also your duty to go to school. So you must be conscious and respectful of these duties. You must be aware and you must respect these duties, political and social. Now, there is also need to be solidarity and unity among the people. People must be united. If we agree or if we disagree, we must agree to disagree. We must say, okay, yes, you have a different view from mine, but we are still citizens of Rwanda. And we must make sure that even if we disagree, we are pushing forward the agenda of developing our country. There is need for the spirit of peace, especially peaceful coexistence among the people. People must understand that even if there is a differences between us, we need to exist in peace with each other and not keep fighting each other. There's no need for violence. We need to exist peacefully with each other despite our differences. And then we must also make sure that there is opportunity for individuals to develop their full potential. People have different talents. People have different things that they want to do. The government has to put in place opportunities for every individual to develop and to achieve or to reach their full potential in whatever they do, as long as it is within the law. And then number 5, we need to have active participation of citizens in the affairs of the state. For democracy to thrive, for democracy to grow, every citizen must be actively involved. People must participate. The citizens must participate in how the country is run. And then lastly, there is need for adequate education of the citizens about public affairs. The government should have a way of teaching every person what they need to do, what they need to know about how the country is being run and what their responsibilities and duties are.
Come along and play with us.
Now, let us look at the types of democracy. How many types of democracy do you think we have? Okay, if you said 2, then you are right. There are 2 types of democracy. That is direct, which is pure or participatory democracy, and then indirect democracy, which is representative. Let us talk about one by one. First, direct democracy. With direct democracy, I hope you are with me. With direct democracy, citizens run the affairs of their government. And whenever a need arises, the citizens are called upon to express the will of the state. You come and you express the will of the state. You share your view in the running of the state. Direct democracy can only be exercised in areas with few people. However, there is a need, like the people have to be very few because it takes time. Now, that's why it can be practiced in about two different ways, maybe. We have what we call a referendum, and sometimes when people need to recall their elected representatives, you can have a referendum. Now, a referendum is the practice of submitting to popular vote a government proposal, and this means that if the government has a proposal, before implementing it, they will ask the people to vote and say yes or no to the proposal. This is one example of direct democracy because it allows citizens to have a say in what the government is doing for the country. I will define a referendum again. It is the practice of submitting to popular vote a government proposal. A government has a proposal and it will submit to the people to vote yes or no before they implement it. Secondly, we have indirect democracy, which is practiced in many states in the world where citizens elect representatives who make the decisions or laws that govern them on their behalf. It is restricted to the act of voting for their preferred representatives at periodic intervals. After a certain period of time, people will have an election. Now, this makes the process brief and not very frequent. After 7 years, for example, here we have an election, and the elected representatives run the country for that period. The citizens, however, can change their elected representatives at will. After the 7 years, people can say, we are tired of you, get out of office, and then they will elect somebody else. For instance, Rwanda holds general elections every 7 years. And for example, the last general elections were in 2017. And during these elections, the people elected the president and other leaders such as senators and deputies and other local leaders. And these people, it is their duty to run the government or to run the state for the next 7 years. I think now it will be until 2024 when we shall have another election. Now, the two types of democracy sometimes can be combined to allow people to participate in the running of the affairs of their states. And these, sometimes you can have a referendum within the 7 years in which the government is in office. So you don't have to wait. You cannot say we are only going to have one type of democracy. Sometimes there is need for a referendum, and the government can say, okay, let's organize a referendum and you participate. When the majority say no, then the government will have to withdraw the proposal. If it has a proposal and the majority say yes, the proposal will go through. There are a number of countries which are democratic. For example, Rwanda, like I've told you, we have periodic elections every 7 years. In Tanzania, they have elections. And Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, and many others. In Europe, we have, all over the world, we have countries like the USA who have elections every 4 years. In Britain, they just had an election last year, 2019, to elect a new prime minister. In France, they have elections every 7 years. Belgium, Germany, they have elections. India, and so many other countries. Now, all the citizens in these countries must or have the duty to participate. Some may choose not to, but they have the duty to participate in these free and fair elections. So the elections have to be free and fair, and everyone must know that they are happening. All citizens, regardless of their status, are bound by law. In these countries, democratic countries, everyone must follow the law, regardless of whether you are the president, whether you are the prime minister, whether you are some sort of minister, or whether you're a member of parliament or a senator. You are under the law. That's what it means. Now, there are human rights and fundamental freedoms. In democratic countries, human rights are always, and at no time, always freedom, human rights and fundamental freedoms are respected. And if any If the government is planning to do something that will infringe on the rights of the people, there has to be a very extraordinary situation. For example, now we are facing the problem of COVID-19. And for that reason, our freedom of movement, our freedom or right to do business has been affected somehow. These are extraordinary times. So the government is allowed to explain to us, okay, we have this problem. So for that reason, you are going to excuse us. We are going to take away some of your rights. And the people have to understand, because it is for our safety. For example, in this case. Now, in these countries, citizens are allowed to participate actively in the affairs of the state. You can talk to the ministers, you can talk to the president, you can share your views on how you see your country is being run, on how you want the country to improve, to become better. Now, the spirit of tolerance is one of the most important things. People are tolerant. Even if somebody has a view that is different from yours, you must respect that view. Whether it is the state, even if a person has a view that is different from that of the state must respect that. Citizens and non-citizens are allowed a chance to develop their potential. If someone is in Rwanda and they are studying in a Rwandan school, but they're not Rwandan, they are free. The state has no right, as long as this person is in the country legally. Those are what we call legal residents. They are what we call citizens and non-citizens, but these non-citizens have to be legal residents. If you are in the country illegally, the state has the right to send you back where you came from. But if you are in the country legally, they allowed you in, you are free as long as you don't threaten the security of the country. There is a need for the citizens to be adequately educated. Every citizen in democratic countries, citizens are adequately educated by the state on what we call public affairs. People know what is going on. People must know, everyone is informed. For instance, we are in this period of COVID-19, like I told you. The state keeps updating people on what is going on, which businesses can open and start operating, when the others that are not yet open are supposed to open. For example, schools are still closed. The state told us that the schools will open in September. And for that reason, we understood and we are aware. At least we are aware and we are informed. And this has been explained to us. The minister took the responsibility of explaining to us, because it is the duty of the state to explain to the people whatever is going on.
Come along and play with us.
Now, there are some countries that are undemocratic. And because democracy is sometimes difficult to have in some countries, and these undemocratic countries have certain characteristics. Usually the citizens are denied some of their rights. And the leader of government, maybe the president or the monarch, has power that nobody can question. And this power is not given to him by the people. And in most of these undemocratic countries, there are no elections. If the elections are held, they are not very free and fair. And then, lastly, most of these countries where there is no democracy, there are so many wars and so much lawlessness that it makes it hard for democracy to even take place. So you find that it is very difficult for democracy to exist in a country where there is a lot of war. Now, I want us to think about the advantages of democracy. We have talked about what needs to be in place for democracy to thrive. We have talked about the characteristics of a democratic country, the things that happen in a democratic country. Now, I want us to talk about what benefits we can get from living in a democratic country. Number one, a democratic country protects its citizens, the interests of its citizens. And the citizens in a democratic country are given the right to vote on political, social, and economic issues. And this normally they do through their representatives. who are in charge of making the major decisions, such as the president. This can greatly protect the people from anything that they normally disagree with to occur. If you are elected the president and he does something, you must agree with what he has said, because you are the ones who elected him. So he works on behalf of the people. Normally, democracy promotes equality, generally because it is based on the rule of equality, which means that all people are equal as far as the law is concerned. Every person has the right to experience and enjoy equal political, social, and economic rights, and the state is not allowed to discriminate him or her on the standard of sex, class, religion, or wealth. So everyone, there's equality that is promoted in the country. Democracy also makes it easy for the administration to be stable, because there is peace. The government is chosen by the people. There's going to be peace, and it's going to be very easy for the state to do whatever its duty is. The state cannot do its job if people are not happy with it. That's why you have war, constant wars and rebellions. That normally this happens when there is no democracy. Sometimes in some cases, some people just don't like the government and they decide to fight the government despite the fact that it is democratic. And then lastly, I will tell you that it helps to make good citizens. Democracy helps to make good citizens, and because people have given their view on whatever is happening, and therefore they feel like they are respected, and therefore they will do whatever they need to do to serve the country because their voice has been heard. If you chose a government, then you must make sure that you work to help it succeed. Now, as we come to the end of our lesson today, I want us to review some of the key points that we learned in today's lesson. One, we said democracy is the form of government in which power is put in the hands of the citizens or the people, and these people exercise their authority on important issues governing them. We have also talked about the characteristics of a democratic country and the characteristics of countries that are not democratic. We have also talked about the different advantages of democracy. I want you to think about more of them. There are so many of them. I want you to think about them. And we need to remember that democracy ensures that countries are peaceful and they can easily develop. So, I want to wish you all the best. Stay home, stay safe, and take care of yourselves until we meet in our next class. As usual, you have been such wonderful students. I hope to see you next time when we meet. Good luck.
Goodbye, 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 teacher. Goodbye, children. See you next time. Goodbye, 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 teacher. Goodbye, children. See you next time.